independent of
Hello,
religious
hello.
ethos.
Okay,
Can
this
you
is kind of
clarify,
a
first of
test
all,
because
was there a bid made to
I have
purchase the
set up the
site
date
on
and
10th of
time
Easter
on
where the
my
hospital will be
Philips,
located? Because the nuns
and so
and
I
the
want to test it
hospital
out. Today is Sunday, the
is
20th
made
of
no
June.
substantial bid.
Tomorrow is the longest day of the year. The anniversary of my father's death as well.
And this hospital will
At the moment, it's 20 minutes to 5 o'clock. I'm in bed with Bob,
and is that legally nailed down?
yes. And we're sorry, the radio is on here.
A little bit of I think there are people maybe trying to
We're just having a nap because it's busy at work.
they should, because
Flo's having a nap outside.
will be the case they do not return to so why do you
Yesterday was the Fête de la Musique,
what are your concerns here?
and we were absolutely
Is around the ownership of the site on which the
filled with people. We managed to do around 800 euros, which is kind of full capacity, really. It was pretty difficult. My feet are sore. The blisters are not really completely gone yet. My neck is sore. My hands and fingers are a bit burnt, some of them. So it's kind of tough. And then working with the perfectionist like you know who is difficult at times. For the record, I should say that I had all the 3 crepes on, and I'm making these 3 crepes, flying, doing my best, you know. It's like a Forestier, a Wicklow, and an Orsonez. So you have to chop up the goat's cheese, which is like glue, and fry the mushrooms, and get the bacon, and the burger, and do all the stuff, and jump from crepe to crepe, because the crepe being up high, you only have a certain amount of time, just a few minutes before it'll burn. So I did all this very quickly, and I was pleased with myself. I thought, wow, that was quick. But then Flo came in, took one look at the crepes, looked at the Wicklow, and said, "Is that all the tomatoes you're putting on that?" And that's what's annoying sometimes. You do a good job in certain areas, but you're only picked up for the fact that you forgot to chop up some shallots or something. It's annoying when you're like in the middle of the service and rushed and adrenaline's flowing and I'm sweating and you're hot, and it's like you don't really need the negative criticisms at that moment. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm gonna have a sleep. Well, here I am, number 2. First one really was just to check, anyway, to see if the date and time comes up. I'm just walking up the hill to the old house, looking at the lavender. Today is Thursday, the 24th, I think, of June. Getting toward the end of last week of June. And it's 3 o'clock, and I'm walking home from the Connemara. And this is really to report another one of these seminal conversations that me and Flo had last night in the Connemara. Is that the word? I don't know what seminal means. It sounds like I'm sticking it in the right place, but I'd have to check that. It was one of these, you could say, groundbreaking, because it does break new ground conversations. So it's been going through my mind the last couple of hours since yesterday, so I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I'd like it on the record because, well, I don't know, it's gonna do me good to talk this through as I walk home, and also, who knows, it might be interesting in a longer time frame if I'm still around. So yesterday evening, Flo said something which she said a few times before, and it's a kind of harmless enough comment. She said, you know, maybe one day you'll find yourself with Martina and your mother. You'll be living in Ireland, and you'll be able to be a therapist for alcoholics, and you'll work in that area. And then many kind of times in the past, she's pointed out such scenarios like that in the same way. She said, I hope you're catching this. I have the thing in my breast pocket. She said, maybe one day you'll find yourself back with Claudia, and she'll help you get a job, or you'll find yourself back in London, and always outside of France. And she's been pragmatic, and she's perfectly right to say this, because why would I be here if it wasn't for her, you know? But at this time anyway, like in the before when she mentions these things, I decided to just explain to her how it kind of made me felt. So I said, you know, sometimes when you say things like that, I feel a certain sense of being betrayed or something, because it's like every time you think about the future, your idea of a happy, nice outcome in the future is one without me in it. It's like I'm gone, I'm not in France anymore. And I was trying to kind of say, you never envisage things working out for us. You never envisage we get rid of the Connemara and some magic comes back in the relationship, and you know, I didn't say all that because, to be honest, I've started thinking that we're separating in an organic kind of way as the days go by, and I'm starting to really doubt very much that there's any way back, because, you know, I have to be honest, I don't feel the way I felt for Flo in the past either. And I find a lot of our yoga stuff kind of irritating, and I could never get into it. And I see a change in her more than me. You know, I was always a person who had a problem with the tactile stuff, the hugging, the kissing, but I had that problem back at the beginning in Elthorne Park Road, and Flo didn't seem to mind. She just was the instigator and would just say, give me a hug, or she would just kind of be the instigator of us being physical, you know. And from the beginning I always said, I'm sorry, but I've just never felt comfortable with the whole hugging thing. It's just... But that kind of came up as a big thing, that I never touch her and I never hug her, and it's like I'm so cold. And the conversation went kind of deep into our relationship and the way things are. And I have to say, I'm very happy, I'm kind of proud of the both of us, that we're able to have these conversations. And for me as well, in an adult kind of way, without kind of getting emotional and wrecked with anxiety about things. I'm able to just listen and say, well, that certain things sound a bit cold the way Flo says them, but they're incredibly pragmatic. They're incredibly realistic, and they're not really meant with any malice. And I was explaining all this. I was saying, you know, you don't mean any harm by when you envisage me in a different country and stuff. And I just said, because it was been on my mind for a long time, I just said, you're not a comforting person. You're not the type of person that's going to ever say, or never seems to say, don't worry, everything will be fine. Or, don't worry, you'll find something, or we'll be fine, you know. And we got talking about the Connemara and how she'd stayed there for far too long. I mean, all this stuff is fucking ancient news at this point. But just passing something. You sure? But she says then, that I stayed so long in the Connemara flow because of me, because she felt responsible and still does feel responsible for me in France. And I realised that, and I was saying to her, you've got to stop really being responsible for me. And then I said, I do remember saying that we should just leave the Connemara, and if it's driving you nuts, don't worry about selling, but this is old stuff. And she said, no, you always wanted to stay, and I really don't anymore. I really don't. And we can't, because you can tell when Flo talks about this, even her mental health is just going to fall to pieces if she stays in this place much longer. That's what came out of my mind. And as soon as I mentioned mental health, it was the first time I'd used the phrase ever really with her, and it kind of set a light off in me and her, I think, because we both realised, well, if it's affecting your mental health and everything, then you've really got to say fuck the money and fuck me in terms of what I'm going to do. You've got to just get out of it. And if it's affecting your mental health, then even if the alternative of getting out of the Connemara means we're going to be struggling for money and jobs and stuff, well, the alternative is you're going to have a kind of mental breakdown. So there isn't really any alternative. You've got to look after yourself. Flo felt quite happy that I'd kind of seconded her resolve to really get rid of this Connemara come the end of the year by reducing the price. Mind you, she keeps saying we'll reduce the price, we'll halve the price, and I haven't really got to the point of saying, well, suppose we reduce the price and nobody's interested, what do we do then? My idea has always been to just drop the place. And I was saying, during the last year and a half we've received so much money from the government that you could actually look at it that we've been paid for this place. We're really not losing anything anymore. And again, I think that helped a bit to free her mind from, at least she can now have she can be looking forward to the fact that this is it this time. There isn't really going to be another 5-6 years in this place, that this is really the end of the line. And whatever happens afterward happens. And we got on talking about the fact, I said, sometimes you have therapists that they say they can put relationships back together, but I was saying sometimes things just seem to naturally dissolve, Our relationship just has gone that way, and it's been affected obviously by the French, by being here, by me not speaking the language to some extent. I don't think a huge extent. I'm not sure that would have changed everything. And the Connemara and her having to do stuff, well, even if I did everything, I'm convinced it would not change anything. She would still be sitting there waiting for customers and be miserable. It's psychologically deeper than those things, this hatred of this type of job. Not hatred, this sickness with this type of job. So even if I had been slightly different, I think we'd still be here. Me speaking French wouldn't have stopped our kind of the space that's developed between us. I'm also coming to the conclusion, I was kind of just saying this before I started this recording, that I have to start, what did they say? Wake up and smell the coffee. I have to start seeing the wood for the trees, or whatever the phrases are. The fact that I am pretty much done here. That's one thing. life here is okay, but it's not great. And although I'm a solitary person, let's face it, being with one person who really you're losing more and more things to having contact, and then having really not a solitary person to discuss anything except some man from Holland that comes in every few years on holiday, and you talk to him and you've got all the same passions. This is a customer who's just as into the movies and just as into them in the same amount of detail that I am. And when we talked the last couple of times, he came in twice with his wife. Well, it just shows me what I'm missing, you know. It shows me what I'm missing, and it kind of... Right now I'm thinking that being on your own over here and being with someone like Flo and her family and stuff, you can get the impression that the things you're interested in and the things you talk about are boring and no one gives a shit. Because that's what I've been met with every time I would bring something up with Flo, or I'm sure with most of the family. But when I meet that guy from Holland, it reminded me that well, no, you know, what you say is not boring. What you say is not just uninteresting trivia crap. But that what I say and what I think and the ideas I come up with are ideas and interests that many, many people share. And I know that I could have great conversations with very many people in a more Anglo-Saxon world. And that all the philosophical stuff I talk about as, you know, getting older, losing interest in things, the passing of time, the special memories of childhood, all these things from people more of my background, England, Ireland, American even, they would be interested. Because when I spoke to this man from Holland, well, we could have spoke all day, you know. And it just showed me, you know, Eddie, it's not, you haven't become just an incredibly boring, uninteresting person that doesn't and will never get two looks from anyone again. No. You still are, you're just in the wrong fucking place. So that was that. And also in the conversation we discussed our sex life, lack of sex life. And in the past, the one thing Flo kind of kept doing was she would look after me in a sexual way every now and again, you know, not all that often. But that stopped the other day as well, because she said I never do anything to her, and it made her feel that she was some kind of a prostitute, her words, by doing stuff to me, and then I would just roll over and sleep. And the dynamic between us in a sexual way is just terrible. Because she's right, I don't do anything to her. If she asked me to massage her or whatever, I would, and I'd be quite happy to do it. But then Flo doesn't want any connection with sex with the massage. She gets so annoyed if I massage her and it brings up sex somehow, you know. Even though, I mean, I'm just a fucking guy. What else would it bring up in me? Better not talk about sex while these two girls are passing. They're listening to a radio. That's not some lunatic on a bike. Yeah, so the dynamic between us in that way is just terrible. And so she said she had to be strong-willed herself, and it was a very conscious decision that she wasn't going to do anything for me, and that she doesn't want to anymore because, like I said, it makes her feel like a prostitute. Because I don't do anything for her, but I don't do anything for her because it feels so fucking awkward. A few times I've tried at night, and it hasn't worked out very well. And if I did ask, do you want something, it's just... Jesus, kid, move over. It's just the guy in a bike seemed to be driving straight toward me. Anyway, yeah, it's... See, the fact of the matter is, I'd quite be delighted to massage Flo. I'd be delighted to be more tactile in that respect. I should have said it to her. Maybe I can say it to her today. I've lost all confidence in it. That's the thing, I think. I've lost absolutely all confidence. Because in my mind, there's like a 99% chance that it's just going to lead to embarrassment if I suggest anything or do anything, even if it's not sexually related. It's just going to be awkward. And then we talked about our past in London, and we both kind of said it was quite sad to think back the way things used to be. And I was saying, yeah, you never met this wonderful, cute girl that I met in London with the crooked tooth and the big smile, always joking, and she used to call me Sherry all the time. That's kind of the way it seemed like to me, and I think Flo feels sad about that as well. Toward the end, she did say something which was a bit unexpected. She said, perhaps we will grow old together. She said it in some kind of context. I can't remember exactly. So when I say groundbreaking and going to new territory, I say we're great that we can talk like this, because it tends to stop resentment building up when you put your cards on the table. Doesn't really solve anything, I guess, except perhaps it makes the problems more clear. And Flo seemed in good form today. I haven't, because sometimes when things like this happen, I'm kind of shook for a few days, because it puts the insecurities into focus for me, blows them up. And I do kind of have that sense of, my God, what am I going to do next? There is also it's a thing in my character of just, you know, sticking around long after I should have, I don't know, moved on in some way. I know it's tricky here because I really don't know what to move on to. But I guess the thing that changed for me, which made me sad, was that I've kind of stopped thinking that there is any solution to us. I've stopped thinking that maybe when the Connemara's finished, and if we could get back together and maybe we can rekindle things, and maybe some miracle will happen and we can even rekindle some kind of a sexual relationship. But we're becoming, continually becoming, different people as time passes by. And I know if I met Flo tomorrow for the first time, it really wouldn't be anything like it was 20 years ago when I met her. If I met her this time for the first time, I don't think I'd probably enjoy talking to her and stuff, but there wouldn't be any more spark there. And that's kind of a nonsense statement, of course, because you're imagining meeting someone that you know for 20 years. If you didn't know her at all, how do you know what you'd feel about her? I don't know. So I think things have to change. Next year, let's say. What I'd like to happen now, I was just thinking about this on the way home. I hope all the travel restrictions will be lifted by Christmas. And I'll go home for Christmas for a week or that with Flo, hopefully, and we'll celebrate Christmas and we'll maybe talk together with my mother and Martina. And then, soon after that, I'd like to go back to Ireland for a little longer, maybe a month or two. And as a sober person who's at a crossroads, I don't mean in drinking respect, I mean at a crossroads in every other way. I can see if I've got the ability now to just look up people and to go to some kind of job office, to have a look around Dublin and just spend some time and explain to my mother and Martina that, you know, really, I need to find something else. I can't go on in France anymore. It's just a dead end. It's really just me, and me and Flo are just hanging on. We're not, you know. And see what could happen from that. That's a pretty realistic plan, I think. It's not like a dreamy kind of thing. The idea of finding a job on the internet and earning money from my bedroom is probably more a fantasy. I wish I could do that though. I wish I could earn money every month by doing some work on the computer. And I wish I could kind of gain some independence in that respect. And then Flo would be happy. And then, you know what? Maybe then I could... God, it'd be great if I had... I can hardly dream about having a decent amount of money, but I was just thinking, to be an ex... Of course, you still have the whole problem with the language here. You know, as I get older, I'm thinking I really want to talk to people. And I also want to... I want to be in a relationship again. I want to be with someone that we kind of turn each other on, that we have the same interests, something. I'm kind of fed up with this barren relationship. And going to X, although it's got some good points, is not going to solve that. Unless through the AA or through some of the American institutes there, you meet someone. But you're still in a situation where you know, in a lot of ways you won't know your fucking ass from your elbow when it comes to the language. So perhaps one has to try and kindle some kind of a relationship with Ireland again. Try and build it slowly, you know, bit by bit. Get back there for a few weeks, go for some walks on your own, try and get some enthusiasm back. Who knows what would happen. But it would be nice at some point as well, I'd say, that I would move out. I've already said this before, and I was pretty close to doing it at one point. Because if we move and I'm in a different place, it's really only at that moment, after a couple of weeks, that we as a couple realize, do we really have anything? And maybe if we split up like that, we'd realize, well, you know, in spite of the lack of this or the lack of that, I really miss living with Flo. Or maybe it would be the opposite. Maybe it would be, I don't miss it at all. And maybe Flo would be like, I really miss Eddie in spite of the fact that we don't have anything in common. Or maybe she'd be like, you know, he's been gone 3 months and the time has flown by. I don't seem to care. These things have to happen, I think. Like we say, a new chapter. Just checking the mail. Florence. 2 letters that look like official letters. Okay. I wonder, is Flo home yet? No, she's not even home yet. You can tell there are times when we don't really want to be together. Anyway. Let's say hello to the doggy. And then I'll probably sleep. That's all I feel like doing. Sleeping. Hello, Tuco. Hello, little fella. Tuco's all clean, ain't you? You had a big... Yeah, you had your hair cut and a shampoo. You had a big shampoo yesterday. Hello, Bob. Nice to see you. Okay, goodbye for now. That's 28 minutes. I'll leave you with that groundbreaking bombshell news. Well, we really are into the heat. Today is the 29th. The 29th of June. And I think, actually, when I look at this file later on, it's going to give me the date and the time. Now the time, I don't really want to take out my phone and start checking it. Although, I might listen to music actually to make this walk a little less long. But the time, it's in the afternoon sometime, that's all I can really say. It's in the afternoon, it's maybe somewhere around 2 o'clock. Just to give you an idea. I walked all the way to the lake. And this time it's, because it's 2 o'clock, maybe it's 1:30, and it's busy and everyone's kind of sitting around to eat, and so Flo would shake her head and roll her eyes if she heard this, because she'd be like, oh, why the hell didn't you just sit down and have a coffee? What the fuck's the problem? But I look up and I see all these tables for 4, and I think they're getting busy. There's cars arriving, and I'm going to be one guy sitting on his own on a table of 4, and the tables look like they're all set up for food, and so even if the guy serves me a coffee, they're probably going to be pissed off because they're all getting busy and there's this one idiot taking up all the space. It's the way my mind works. Or he's going to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to say I'm sorry, he's going to say, Monsieur, tu dois manger, it's lunchtime. I'm going to have to walk off with everyone looking at me, so. And it's also a decision you have to make, or at least I have to make quite quickly, because I can't stop in the middle of all these people and start staring into the restaurant like an idiot. I could do pretend I'm looking for someone, but I kept walking, and so in my mind it's like you have a small amount of time to kind of decide what you're going to do here, and you know, before you know it, you've taken 10 steps and you're already, well, you're into the pétanque area, and so then it's it's too late. But it doesn't matter, I don't really need a coffee anyway. I could have done maybe with the break to give my feet a rest, but never mind. So I'm now walking toward Orizon, like I did about 2 weeks ago when I had the blisters. and I can hear all the seagulls in the background here, and it's, I guess, 28 degrees, pushing 30 perhaps. Quite a few clouds around, so it's not as bad as it could be. And I'm wearing my kind of green swimming trunks, really, because it's really light, and a t-shirt. And I haven't put any sun cream on. I'm actually just taking some sun today. Not sure that's a good idea or not. And what we wanted to talk about, of course, in this particular broadcast is the news of the day, the news of the hour. The crypto markets are the same as they've been for the last 6-8 weeks. I don't know. Bitcoin hovering between 30 and 40, and everything else jumping up and down, like a yo-yo, really. 20% up, 20% down. I genuinely don't have. I'm managing to lose interest in it. I just check once or twice a day now, and that's it. But I guess the bigger news is what I think I've already spoke about this a little bit at the conversation me and Flo had, and I said it was a bit unsettling or upsetting the way she kind of visualizes the future with me not in it. And I'm kind of in another. I'm in Ireland, or I'm in London, and I'm not with her. And we definitely seem to be going to stop in the Connemara at the end of the year. And I had my mother on the phone yesterday evening, because she called during the week and I didn't answer, so I called her back, and I was talking to her and Martina, and it was a very intuitive kind of move, like we say in chess. It felt like the thing to do, and I tried to kind of lay things out for them pretty bluntly, you know. I said to Martina that me and Flo kind of seem to be moving for a long time now in different directions. She's really into really into yoga. She's had enough of the Connemara. We're definitely going to stop. I don't know what I'll do. I might be home for a longer break than I think. I said things that have been going around in my head for, literally years. And so I don't know how all that sounds to Martina and my mother, and I don't know if I've said it. I probably may have actually said these things before in some way, so perhaps it's not totally new. I don't know, but I just said to Martina, it's not just about me finding a job here. It's the fact that I don't have anything to do. We're living in the middle of nowhere. I don't know anyone, and I just kind of miss having some kind of social life. I don't really know how all this will go down. I don't know what they said to each other after the call. The worst scenario for me would be that my mother does that look. She gets all stern and says, "Oh God, I hope he's not going to end up back here." And they all kind of look at each other, and they kind of all think, well, yeah, I don't mind him for a week or two, but I wouldn't want him to be here all the time. That's my greatest fear, I suppose, to be unwelcome. I hope it's more a case that because of life, passing of time, because of Martina's dreadful couple of years, that maybe we're all kind of past that now, and they simply say, well, they hope it works out because they're genuinely just worried about me and Flo, and they'd like things to work between us. But if I have to go back for a while, they're absolutely fine with that, and that even to the point where they actually would look forward to having me around for a while. That's the conversation I hope they had afterward, but I guess I'm not the most secure person. I don't know. I can understand my mum could be simply worried about me and what I'm going to do, and worried about me being depressed in Carlo, and it's nothing to do with her, me staying with her and Martina that's bothering them. It's just a genuine worry about her son, you know. And with Martina, well, I hope she'd be okay with that. Kind of sticks in my throat a bit, the stuff we said when we were going to Killarney, and we had a little disagreement about our father, about him never losing his temper. Just, Martina said, if you did something wrong, he just wouldn't speak to you. And I said something to the effect that, well, I'd seen him lose his temper once or twice, and he could be pretty impressive. And for some reason, Martina just wouldn't accept that. And, well, I kind of wished I'd shut the hell up. But I kind of kept pressing it, and I think I annoyed Martina. And then I said something else, and I annoyed my mother because I was speaking too loudly, and the other people, it's like there was one other group beside us. It's things like this where I've changed, and I can be a bit loud, I think. A bit American, maybe. And I'm sorry I did that, because I wouldn't want them thinking, I wouldn't want that part of me to be in the mix when I'm talking about coming back, and they're thinking, you know, he can be kind of a bit insane sometimes. I don't know. I'm joining all the dots myself here. I have no idea if I'm right or wrong in any of this, but I guess the bottom line is that noise you can hear. If you hear kind of like waves or wind, that's the water treatment plant. I'm just standing outside the fence here, looking at the old one and behind it the new one. And I remember coming this way, walking toward the lake one time, and actually listening to the $6 Million Man and heading for the sky because I was drinking. So I was saying that to myself earlier. I don't think I'd have a problem if I had to socialize. I wouldn't really need the alcohol. I'd be so happy to socialize. I'd be so happy to be able to string some sentences together in front of another human being. That would be enough. That would be, you know. But walking around like this on my own, I don't know if it's like this for other alcoholics. The trigger is stronger for me in these situations, you know. And as I get older and as the sobriety grows, there's kind of a growing sense of nostalgia for those moments when I went to the high country in a very pure and genuinely spiritual way, and didn't bother anybody and didn't fall down, and, you know, just looked around at the trees or the sky and had a certain song playing in my ears and just felt incredibly empowered. I know I can feel that again without alcohol. But I guess it's the heat as well. Feeling of being thirsty, and, you know. Anyway, so I spoke to my mum and Martina about all this, and found it reasonably easy talking to Martina as well. And like I was saying before I started recording, you know, the idea of going back and spending a bit of time and just joining in Martina's routine and talking to John and going out to Costa and talking to Mary and Lily and Anne, and that kind of gentle routine. I wouldn't mind that at all, to be honest. It's been a long time. I've missed it. I've got an awful lot of stuff I feel I'd like to get off my chest. And I may even this time be that little bit more hungry to speak to other people, which may overcome my shyness or reservedness. And I mean, for instance, I'd really like to go and see Kieran Egan. I'd like to spend time with him. And after that, I really would like to meet other people. I'd genuinely like to know how John Byrne is doing. I'd love to have a deep conversation with John Byrne. I don't mean Lily's John, I mean my friend John Byrne from the old days. He was a guy, he's got some depth. Thinking about all these things, by the way, has put me in a sense of I'm actually thoroughly looking forward to all this, to get back, and who knows what'll happen there, and who knows if it might be the beginning of the end of the French adventure. But as I say it now, in spite of the fact that I'm looking around at the most beautiful countryside, the thought of going back and all those things I've mentioned, which are realistic, I don't think I'm being very... I don't have my head in the sky when I'm thinking about what will happen there. There'll be down moments, but I've been there many times before, and I know I will be talking to my mom, I know I'll be talking to Martina, I know we'll connect on some way, and maybe not others. I know I'll go out. And besides the fear of a lot of the bad people living in Ireland, the fact that I'm in a more closer proximity to people I would never want to meet than I am here. Here I'm really... I feel like I've got just such an amount of space between me and the bad men. But besides that, there is a genuine attraction to going back. And it overrides, strangely, and I'm comforted by this, the fear of the situation with me and Flo. The fear of us being finished. Because it's, I tend to stay in situations far too long, but there is a strange sense of, which is a funny thing to think about because it goes back all the way to the mid-80s when I first came to London. And I'm getting up every morning and I'm in Tooting Broadway, and I have to wait for everybody to leave to go to this crappy little bathroom in this horrible house, and then go all the way in to Regent Street and do this job. And I was doing it for 3 months, I think it was just 3 months I was there. And it just kind of struck me one morning. This is very like the prodigal son story in the Bible. It really is. I just thought, I could be home. I don't have to be here. And the thought was just, it released me immediately from a situation that I had maybe liked at the beginning, but now didn't like. And I remember that very day I gave my notice in, and I went to the travel agent that day or the next, and I booked a flight, and I was gone like within 3 days of having the thought, you know. It just seemed so clear in my mind that I had to get the fuck out of that place. There was no point in staying. Now that was over 30 years ago. And things are different now, and there's more. You know, I'm married, it's not the same staying in a house with a few guys. But there is a sense of that feeling again. There's a sense of that feeling that's like, you know, you don't have to be here. When all is said and done, and all the stuff that you're listening to all the time, and all the, rightly or wrongly, all the criticisms and the nagging and the knocking, all the lack of empathy that you feel, and just the uncomfortableness, the unpleasantness. The kind of feeling of clutching at straws, and I guess most of all the I don't want to say loneliness, because I'm a loner anyway. I like being on my own, but it's probably something that I would have said when I was back in Sutherland Avenue. The solitude of not speaking to anyone. All those things are so strong that the grass is really starting to look greener on the other side at this point. And I'm like, you won't have the weather, you won't have the anonymity. I won't be anonymous, like in a sense I am here. You have many, many more rough people in Carlow. It's not as aesthetically pleasing. There's a hell of a lot of beauty in X, and there's going to be, I guess, some beauty in Carlow, but a lot of fucking fat ugliness. But there's also the other side. And I guess most of all, putting everything in a nutshell, there isn't really any future here for me that I can see at this moment, and this is just this moment. I would say that to myself, anyone else listening to this. I am not a definitive, this is not the definitive version of anything. It is the way it is today on the 29th of June, 2021. Things can change dramatically in a week. So of course you've got to take all this with a pinch of salt, but if I was writing a book about all this, and I was writing a letter to my best friend, Paul Ray, I think that was Nietzsche's friend. I'm just saying that in case I don't remember the reference myself, if I'm ever listening to this and it starts to bother me, just to stick that in there. And I'm writing a letter about my situation and how things are. This is the letter I'd write. These are the things I'd say. If I had to write the same letter in a week or two, don't ask me. It could be completely different. Could be completely different. So again, I'm doing this long walk because I don't want to stay in the house all day. I mean, really, me and Flo don't really talk, and we don't do anything together. And so we just kind of sit around all day staring at the windows. I don't come up with anything, and she doesn't anymore. We could have went to so many places, but well, this is much my fault. I never really brought it up. Anyway, I guess that's it for 22 minutes, number 3 on the tape here. Getting to the end of June. It'll be interesting to see the way the rest of the year pans out and what happens. But as I'm getting into civilization now, I don't want to be walking down the street talking to myself, people looking at me. So I'm going to say goodbye.